Coming up on the Paper Talk today, it's the morning after the night before. Again, Manchester United crashing out the FA Cup. Most of the Paper Talk focusing on the sort of the autopsy of that game. People looking at the comments from Ruben Amorim, looking at what Wayne Rooney had to say about it as well, and looking at some of the performances too. So let's get into it. Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and it's a little bit cold, that's not a word, a little bit cold, and my mood is pretty grim, like most Manchester United fans this morning. We're out in the FA Cup, we're not going to retain our trophy, we're not going to get to 3 finals in 3 years. I did all this yesterday over there somewhere, post-match. I did a little bit of reaction, so I don't want to repeat myself, but I will give you some of the comments we heard from the manager post-match. Obviously, a lot of the newspapers this morning focusing on Manchester United getting knocked out of the FA Cup, and the wider picture as well at Manchester United, just what is going on this season. I said it yesterday in my review, I said this season's in danger of becoming a disaster, and someone commented and saying it's already a disaster, it's been a disaster for 4 months. What I was sort of alluding to was that we still have the Europa League, like that is the one crumb that is saving this season from being completely and utterly abysmal. But even if you put that to one side, I mean, it's been grim, hasn't it? There's no sugarcoating it. I mean, and also, if you're looking at the form, you're looking at the way we've been playing, how much confidence do you have in us actually winning the Europa League? I thought, and I've been saying it quite a while now, we can win the Europa. You look at some of the results we've had, we have beaten the likes of Arsenal, Manchester City, we've had a decent result at Anfield as well, but you've got to be brutally honest and say this team doesn't look like it can win any trophies at the minute. We're just miles away from where we need to be. And yesterday showed that. There were some good performances. There was a little bit of grit, determination and fighting spirit that we have seen over the past couple of weeks or the past week or so. But ultimately, it's a lack of quality that costs you. And it cost us yesterday. Now, following the game, Wayne Rooney, or during the commentary, obviously I was at the game, I didn't see the commentary, but he called Ruben Amorim naive, because Ruben Amorim had said the goal is to win the Premier League, so Wayne Rooney was saying it's naive to think you can win the Premier League, or I'm sort of paraphrasing it, it's naive for the manager to say this team can win the Premier League. Now, I get what Ruben Amorim was saying. He was saying ultimately the goal at Manchester United should be to win the Premier League, and I understand that, and I think it should be. A club the size of Manchester United, with the history we've got, the money we've spent, everything else, the ultimate goal should be to win the Premier League. And when you replace a manager who's won the Carabao Cup and won the FA Cup in his last 2 seasons, if you come in and you go, well, the goal here is to win the Carabao Cup again or to win the FA Cup again, people think, really? Is that what we got rid of Ten Hag for? To get someone else in who could win the same trophies that Ten Hag did? No. Ultimately, the goal should be to win the Premier League. That is the benchmark. That is the standard. That is why many managers post Sir Matt Busby until Sir Alex Ferguson failed. Not because they didn't win FA Cups. If you know your history, you know Tommy Docherty won an FA Cup, although he got sacked for different reasons. Ron Atkinson won 2 FA Cups. It was all about winning the league. That was the holy grail, and Alex Ferguson got us there. Sir Alex Ferguson got us there. Let's give him his full title. That should be what every manager that takes over now or that is in charge now is aiming for, and that is what Ruben Amorim is aiming for. Now, I understand where Wayne Rooney's coming from, because you look at what you're seeing here at the minute and you go, winning the Premier League, this lot, they couldn't win anything. They couldn't win the Championship, let alone the Premier League. They're terrible at the minute. So I understand it does look a little bit naive, but you've got to look at the nuance and what the manager's saying. And the manager responded to that. I think in the post-match press conference, he was asked about it. Someone said, Wayne Rooney's labelled you naive. And he said, look, ultimately, I'm paraphrasing again, but that is the ultimate goal. He also spoke about the fact he's a 40-year-old man who's managing Manchester United. Why is that? He's got to have some talent, he's got to have some ability. And I do get both sides to this. You're looking at it, you're going, we're a million miles away from winning the Premier League, but as the Man United manager, that's got to be the ultimate goal. Now, I think it was Omar Brada who said he wants to win the Premier League or expects us to win the Premier League by 2028. And I get it. Because if he'd have said 2038, people would have gone, that's too far away. And if he'd have said 2026, people would have said that's too soon. But that 2028 statement just felt completely arbitrary. It felt like he just focus groups it, almost. I know that's not quite arbitrary. That's sort of, you thought about what you're saying. But he did like, well, we'll say 2028 because that gives us a few years and people won't, lose their minds if we say 2028 because they think, oh, okay, we can be Premier League champions in a few years. That'll be great. We're not going to be Premier League champions in 2028. We ain't. We are miles away, right? And I don't want to hear, before you say it, about Leicester City. Leicester City went from bottom half of the table to win the Premier League next season. That was an outlier. It ain't going to happen again, right? I put my neck out on the line and say it won't. Manchester United are not going to be Premier League champions within 3 years. Yeah, I think we should aim for the top half of the table within 3 years, because at the minute, that seems like a distant, sort of deluded fantasy. So we've got a long way to go before we can start winning the Premier League, and I understand why Wayne Rooney's sort of calling out the manager on that, and I can also see the manager's point of view. The manager has to remain positive. He has to give us some sort of goal. He has to give us some sort of ambition, although at the minute it does come across as, I wouldn't say naive. I think he's been a little bit harsh there, Wayne Rooney. It's just miles away, innit? We've got to be brutally honest. If we are going to win any trophies, though, and win the Premier League over the next few seasons, there's a good chance Chido Obi could be a part of that. I thought he had a good game yesterday. He grew into the game. There was some stats floating around. I think Statman Dave, who loves his stats, obviously, hence his moniker. He posted a tweet, or posted on X, if you want to call it that, saying that I think he had 100% successful take-ons, 3 big chances, 3 shots. I was watching Chido very closely when he came on, because he didn't touch the ball for a little while. I was looking at it thinking, crikey, he's not touched the ball for about 10-15 minutes there. Then when he started getting a little bit more on the ball, he's making some good runs, by the way. I'm not blaming him for not touching it. I think some of his teammates weren't picking him out. We kept hoofing the ball forward, just miles away from him, like expecting him to somehow run and get on the end of it and get there ahead of 2 defenders who were closer to the ball. It was a bit ridiculous. However, when he started getting touches, when he started getting more involved, he grew into the game, and I thought he had a very good performance, and you can see why the manager is beginning to trust him a little bit more. He's had a few more minutes, hasn't he? I think, was it 3 minutes at Spurs, which was ridiculous. I think 20 minutes at Goodison, obviously a little bit more yesterday, counting the extra time as well. I think, was it around 50 minutes or something like that. Alan Shearer said he likes what he sees. Now, I might not like Alan Shearer for what he did at Newcastle, and the fact he didn't want to come to Manchester United, and the fact he won the title at Blackburn, but he knows a thing or two about being a striker, doesn't he? And when he's saying he likes what he sees, you can sort of understand it and you can appreciate it as well. So, Chido Obi, I think he's a player there who's got a bright future. I've said we've got to be careful with him, and I still think there's an element of that. But you're looking at Rasmus Højlund now, 18 games, I think it is, in all competitions without a goal. Yesterday, he looked well off the pace again, and a few papers and a few reporters and a few of the match ratings I'm seeing in the different newspapers are picking up on it. He's not getting a lot of love at the minute, Rasmus Højlund, and I sympathise with him, because it's not all his fault. He's not getting the service and all the rest of it. But 18 games in all competitions playing for Manchester United, you can't ignore that. And you can't just blame it on service. And you can't ignore the fact that when Chido came on, he looks a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more lively than Rasmus Højlund, who's, 5 years older than him and costs 72 million quid. Should be doing a little bit better. 2 things can be true. The service cannot be great and the player himself cannot be doing well enough. And I think those 2 things are true at the minute. And I do think it might be time to start giving Chido even more minutes, because at the minute, Rasmus Højlund, it's just not happening for him. And the problem you've got is Joshua Zirkzee, who I think we can all agree is good on the ball and does quite a lot of good stuff. He's not a goal scorer. And you just can't have 2 attackers who aren't goal scorers in your team. It's not going to work, especially when you want to throw into the mix the fact that Alejandro Garnacho stopped scoring as well. So we've just got an attack now full of people that don't score goals. That ain't going to work. One person that did score a goal is Bruno Fernandes. Now, we spoke about him last week on the channel. Roy Keane was going in on quite hard on Bruno Fernandes, calling him, was it a bluffer, I think he said? Got quite animated and angry when he was talking about Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes, however, did get the goal yesterday. He did step up. I think he got player of the match as well, officially. So you can see that he is a player that tries to make things happen. He is still a player that can get you goals and assists. The problem he's got, and I've said this all the time with Bruno, he's surrounded by players that can't. He's surrounded by players that just ain't up to it. If you look at Bruno's best seasons at Manchester United, in terms of productivity, in terms of goals and assists, look at who he had around him. He had Paul Pogba next to him. He had Anthony Martial, Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford scoring, 65 goals was it that season between them, or something like 60-odd goals? We're not going to hit 60 goals as a team this season. So it matters who's around you. When you've got attackers that don't score in front of you, and you've got midfielders that are always changing, and perhaps some of them aren't up to the job, some of them are, legs aren't what they used to be, then you're going to struggle as a team, and you maybe he's going to struggle slightly as an individual. But I think Bruno Fernandes is not a problem for Manchester United. I think he's been a solution for Manchester United, and I think he's showing that in his performances of late, even though the team aren't really hitting the heights that they should be. Listen, I don't want to labour the point about yesterday's game, but that is what everyone's talking about. Just one final one. Joshua Zirkzee obviously missed the penalty. He did a post on Instagram saying, I think it was, I'm paraphrasing again, saying, sorry, I'll let you down. Look, it happens. He was obviously the hero of the hour, wasn't he, at the Emirates. Didn't score a penalty. I can forgive players for not scoring a penalty. I've seen Ruud van Nistelrooy miss penalties for Manchester United. It happens. It's just, at the minute, it's not a happy time for Manchester United, and especially for our attackers, and we need to see something happen. We've got Real Sociedad this week. It's all eyes on the Europa League now. If we get knocked out of the Europa League, I shudder to think what that means for this club and what that means for this team moving forward. And you wonder as well, with Ineos, are they going to start looking at the manager and going, did we make a mistake? They've already been a bit trigger happy already, haven't they, with Dan Ashworth? Now, I'm not saying Ruben Amorim should go before anyone starts piling in the comments and saying, oh, he turned against him. I haven't. I think he's the right man for the job. I just don't have much faith in Ineos and their patience if Manchester United's season ends with nothingness, which is what it's heading towards. Anyway, get involved in the chat in the comments. Let us know what you think. We've got loads of content coming up later on today. We've got the Paddock podcast, of course, plus some other videos coming up. Make sure as well, if you want to put yourself through it, go and check out the post-match reaction from yesterday. I think you've got myself, you've got Stephen Howson, you've got Joe, you've got Andy Tate. So go and check out all that good stuff. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. We want to get to 800,000 subscribers by, I don't know, the end of the week. And with your support, we can get there. I've been Jay. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.